Hi guys, Billy back, and sometimes when life gives you lemons, you've got to make lemonade. Or sometimes those lemons are so bad and rotten that you can't even make lemonade out of them. You know, the only thing you can really do with them is maybe cut them in half and then use them to maybe clean the glass shower screen in your bathroom or whatever. But then sometimes they're so rotten you can't even do that with them. So you take the lemons and you throw them in the bin and you go, screw it, and you go down the pub and you just get a lovely nice cold beer. Sorry, what was I talking about? Oh, I got distracted by beer there. Oh yeah, I bought the HC Toys Mark 6 1/6 scale figure, and it's a piece of crap. So I decided to customize it. So this is going to be a customizing video. Cue the music. Why am I saying cue the music? I'm the one that does everything anyway. Okay, so this is the box it came in, and as you can see, it's a bit of a beaten up piece of crap, to be honest. It came all battered and tattered, and if we come around, the box, surprisingly, the box is quite nice. Excuse the sort of zooming in the mess here, but I've only got a certain amount of space to work with, so we pull it across, and then we get, see, that's how much of a piece of rubbish this is. The flap just fell open on it, so I can't even stand it up. I mean, as you can see from the box, it's not bad design-wise. It's got this really nice sort of Mark 6 design on the front. It's got the Avengers logo. On the side, it's got like some, don't know what you'd call that. Is that spot foil print on there? Heyokai Toys. It's not a horrific box. It's even got this really nice sort of big print on there. And it's just, it's such a crap piece of packaging. You know, they boxed it so wrongly. And then when you pull this thing out of the packaging, you can see this thing is gone. it died 1,000 deaths. You still see I've still got the batteries in it. I haven't taken them out. There's batteries in there already, so not too bad. Once I actually opened this thing up and started working on it, I saw straight out of the box one of the hands had fallen apart, and as I started to take the thing out of the box, the little flaps on the back of it fell off. It was terrible. Now the reason I bought this is simply because if it was any good, I was going to take a few of these and I was going to repaint, and I was going to have them all repainted in different colours. I was going to have the Mark 6 in a green, I was going to have a blue, I was going to have an orange, a yellow, and a red. They were all going to be lined up along the shelf, and they were all going to look really cool and bright and vibrant. But once I actually got the figure, I realised its shortcomings. And as I started to open it up and take little bits off to see, because I was going to break it down anyway, but as I started to take things off, things just started falling off naturally, and it made an absolute mess. And when I was finished, I was left with something that looks like this. Yeah, it doesn't look great, does it? One of the main problems I've got with this figure is that when they cast certain bits of it, they literally cast them out of like a solid plastic rubber. The main torso is almost like a solid plastic piece. Like the real Hot Toys ones, they're hollow in the middle, they've got like inside bits, it all comes together. And if you really wanted to, you could probably, with a bit of tender loving care, break apart a Hot Toy to its most lowest forms, every tiny little piece. I remember doing it with a Silver Centurion to repaint it blue. And I could literally take every tiny little bit off of that. There were so many pieces. It was like a jigsaw puzzle putting it back together. So I was expecting something a little bit more like that. But what I got was all these hard rubbery plastic bits here. I don't want to tap too much. I'll end up smashing the glass on my shelf. All these hard rubbery plastic bits. The thing is, this is all hard rubber plastic. So this is just one solid piece. This is a solid piece, there's no back flap on or anything, but the inside joint there is actually hollow. So when you fold it, you can see it does work, it does fold, or this one worked and folded, should I say. This one worked absolutely fine. But then when I went to the other leg to fold that one, this is what I got. This just snapped with barely any effort at all. It was literally, I just went, let's see if it can fold. Pop. Just went like that. And I was like, for flip's sake. And you can see the joint has snapped in there. So it was terrible. Absolutely shoddy. Then you get this lower torso half here. The reason I'm not showing you all the other bits is because the other bits have been made into something else now. And I'll reveal that in a minute. But that's what I got. You can see it's quite a nice ratcheted joints on there to keep it all solid. But that's partly because the weight of the actual solid rubbery plastic pieces here are quite heavy. So if you were to have weak joints, they just snap off these bits, these connectors in a second because they're just so heavy. And that's the lower part of the torso, and it's really shoddily painted. It's not great. Yeah, once I started undoing everything, see all these pieces in here. There's forearm pieces, and this is one of the bit of the bonuses here. Look, this is all right. You get these, which are the red pants. So then you can do like I don't know, if you need to replace the pink panties problem with the Mark IV, easily rectified with this, I think. But it's a lot of money to be spending just to replace one single piece. So then I was sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I was like, what am I going to do with this piece of shit? Because it is just falling apart and it doesn't work very well. So I wondered what I was going to do with it. As I started to take open the upper torso part where the head was and the neck and everything like that, I saw there was a paint splodge on the corner, and I just went, oh, there's a paint splodge. So I decided to see if I could just remove that bit, just in case it was a bit of dust or something. I wasn't sure. And then I did that, and then the paint come off in my hand. That was how bad the upper torso piece was. The paint just started coming off in my hand. And by the time I'd finished, I had taken the paint all the way around the edge of the actual chest piece. And I was so disappointed, because I was like, what a piece of crap. And then I started thinking, what am I going to do with it? And I didn't have any inspiration on what I was going to make with the damn thing. But then as I was playing around with that torso piece, it sort of just came to me, and I just went, oh, I know what to do here. So without further ado, I'm just going to show you what I did. Voila! This is what I managed to do with the bits I could salvage from it. Because I scraped off some of the paint there, I realised it looked probably quite good as battle damage. So I just went through and I battle damaged the whole torso, and I just went to town on it, and I did smoke effects and I did paint chippings. So finally, once I was in a happy place with the battle damage, I started to break apart the forearm pieces. It's not like the original construction version Mark III. It's not exactly like that, as you can see. I wasn't going for film accuracy. I was just going for something that didn't look like a big pile of crap in a tiny little plastic box in the corner that I could do nothing with. So I tried to do as much salvaging as I could. And when I came up with this idea, I decided that I would break apart all the pieces of the forearms. As you can see here, this one's still attached, and I managed to get most of the lighting working. The lighting failed on this one. It broke because I was pissing around too much. But to be honest, it probably works better because I didn't need the light up feature on that arm anyway. It's supposed to look like it's had a very rough time, and it's now back in the workshop getting fixed up because it needs a lot of TLC. So what I did in the end was I took this piece here and I made a misshapen rectangle with two squares taken out of the top and the bottom, so there was a middle piece in the section. I'm going to show you photos as we go through, and it basically made this shape. And then what I did was I went upstairs with this piece of styrene and I glued the forearm piece, the original forearm piece from this, onto a piece of paper, and then I used a heat gun to melt the styrene over the forearm piece to get a roughly an approximated forearm shape. And then I used another piece around the back, did the same, and then I used some small bits of styrene as connecting gluing pieces to glue that all together. And I also used the Iron Man Bones forearm. I took the Iron Man Bones forearm and I used blue stuff, which is like a molding kit. You got this stuff called blue stuff, and you put it in hot water and you can melt it. It's like a silicone, but it's a meltable silicone, and you can then sort of reshape it, put it down, put anything you want into it, take it out, and once it cools down, it turns into a solid silicone mold. And then I used some green stuff, which is from the same people, and it's like a milliput. It's like an epoxy dough, and you mix one piece of the A and one piece of the B together, and you form it, and then you put it down into the actual blue stuff mold, and it creates a forearm piece. And it's just got some details of machinery in there, and I've put wires through and everything. And then I stuck that piece up on the inside, so it doesn't look completely hollow. There's something working on the inside. It's not perfect. If I had all the time in the world, I could probably get something a little bit better, but you know, I've got a life, I've got a wife, I've got a house, I've got a job. Yeah, you can only dedicate a certain amount of time to this hobby. So what I did was I did the best I could with the time constraints I had, and I created that. And I stuck all that in, and I've you know, taken apart loads of old wires. This is some Ethernet cable. These are some cables from just a normal USB lead, and there's some metal leading here, and just some silicon tubing, and I then put some more wire inside the silicon tubing, so there's a bit more detail in there. And I just attached it all up inside, and I actually stick some wires on this side just to try and make it look like it was, you know, a bit more busier on that side. And I just went to town, just sort of painting it, battle damaging it, and I made this little styrene box. And this part here is actually the stand. This is the original cheap plastic stand you've got with it, and it's quite flimsy. And I was looking around online, and I started asking people on the Facebook forums what I could do with this. You know, is there another one? Because I needed two, because I needed a bottom one and a top one to make this work. And I could have chosen a different shape. You know, in the original construction version, there were two different shapes. The bottom half was like a reused Terminator 2 stand, and the top half was just a square diorama piece that they designed specifically for it. It didn't have to be exactly the same, but I felt that I could get it to work a bit better if they would just looked exactly the same. Sorry for knocking the camera. I also replaced the pole at the back there with just like an iron pole that was the same size as the original plastic pole, but the plastic pole was quite flimsy, it was quite thin. It wouldn't have been able to take all that weight. So there's a metal pole there, and I just used a simple hacksaw to cut the shape I wanted off. And I could have got this taller, I could have made it much bigger, but I was a little bit worried that it wouldn't fit on my shelves. I needed to make sure that it sort of fitted in okay to everything I wanted to do. And if you need to, you can always elevate it a bit more with risers. Now, my challenge that I set myself was that I wasn't going to spend much money on this, if any at all. I was going to try and use all pieces of sort of all materials that I had already in my collection, in my paint set. But obviously that sort of fell through a little bit when I decided that I was going to, you know, reinforce the back here with that metal pole. So I had to go get a metal pole, and that cost me about £5 from B&Q, I'd say. Yeah, it was about £5. And then I wanted to come up with another idea, and I wanted to, you know, get a second stand here. And I asked around on the Facebook forums, but at the time there just wasn't any available. So I contacted somebody who sells parts on Facebook, and I said, do they have any of these stands? He said, no, but I've got this stand. This is an official Captain America Age of Ultron stand, but it wasn't being used or anything. So I decided to buy it, and that actually cost me £10. But I got a new a cradle out of it, a crotch grabber and stuff. So, you know, I'm going to reuse that as well. So it's not like this completely was a massive expense. And then I went out and I bought some cheap LED light. And I went to the pound shop of all places, and I got some LED lighting. Would you like to see the LED lights up? What I did was I fitted the LEDs up in the top here. I thread the rest of them through this pole, which was a real pain in the arse. Trust me, that took me a while. And then the battery compartment is down in here. And I also took apart the battery housing, and I just sort of hot glued those pieces down in there. And I then used a different battery pack, believe it or not, and I had to solder a different battery pack on because the battery pack that it came with was too thick, and the batteries were AA and they were too thick for this base. I had to use AAA. So I bought a new, I didn't buy a new housing, a AAA housing. I had some left over from some LED testing I did a couple of years ago, and so I just stuck that in there, and here we go. That's the LED switched on. Obviously with this bright light underneath here, it's very hard to see that this works, but it does. It lights up pretty well, and it looks really good. And one of the things I did actually give kudos to the HC Toys Iron Man Mark 6 is the fact that this whole thing lights up. Give me a second, I'll show you what I mean. And here he is all lit up, and you can see that the eyes light up, the chest lights up, which is why I gave kudos to HC Toys. There's a bit of a gap in between the chest piece, you can see a bit of light streaming through, but it's not too bad. And this forearm lights up as well, so it all kind of works. Unfortunately, the LEDs are getting a bit faded in the head now because of the amount of times I've turned it off and on to make sure it was still working while I was doing this. It took a very long time, but it does work, and you can see it lights up. And as you take it off, we can see I did a lot of battle damage to this thing. I gave it a good old kick in just to make it look like he's been through the wars. Lots of smoke effects and stuff. But as we can see, I've also gone inside and I've painted the whole inside silver, because unfortunately this neck here is so thin with the paint job that when you turn it on, the light shines through the front of the neck, and this is all pink and bright and shiny. So I had to go back, and what I did was I battle damaged it, and then I painted all this area here with more silver, only because what I wanted was when you put that light on, and before when you put this head on and this was shining through, the eyes were coming out more pink than white. So what I wanted to do was I put more silver on there to help reflect the light a little easier, and I also painted it silver inside so the light reflects a bit more and you get a bright white light through the eyes. Again, I've got to replace the batteries because I've overused it now for a bit, testing it and whatnot. I say the arc reactor works really well. Unfortunately, it lights up a little too bright, and it can be just sort of, when you try to take photos of this thing, you know, the arc reactor shines right back into the lens. It's not great. But anyway, back to the diorama, the base pieces I did. I put the LEDs in, fed them through here. It looks a bloody mess in there, I'm telling you. I didn't do it very well. I could do probably better with more time, but you know, again, time constraints. It takes a little while to get this done. So I put it all in, fed through the LEDs, and it all seems to work pretty well. And then the battery compartment switch is on the back here, just there. And you can see I've sort of cut it out, but it's a bit messy, it's sloppy there, but it's all glued in place so I can turn it off and on whenever I want. And as you can see, while we're around the back, actually, let's just have a look at how I did that. I fed through some electrical wire, and I used some of that the wire housing, you know, like the heat shrink wire housing, and I had little pieces of it like this big, so I just thread them through all the way through, and then I heated it up and it shrank to the size and it wrapped around the cable pretty well. And then I resprayed this area with the polycarbonate silver I had, which was from my repaint of the Silver Centurion, so I didn't have to spend any money there. And it fed through, and then it goes up in under. I did the exact same thing with this, except for I didn't use any paint on this one. I just used the black heat shrink wrap around it there, so it's got a black wire sticking out there, and then two more just here. This one's got housing on, this one doesn't. I forgot to put that one on before I glued it in place. I was like, ah, damn it, but you know, just the way of the world. And you can see he's battle damaged all the way around the back here. These chains were pretty good. In fact, I had that chain from a piece of jewellery I bought years ago. See, I was doing a Ghost Rider custom, and I bought loads of little bits of chain so that I could wrap around him, and I had some left over from that. So that's what this is here. This is just bits of that. And you can see these bits of clamps. Those are U-clamps. You know how people use the detolf, use U-clamps on the detolf just on the side here, you can see, and they clamp them to that pole down there, and it just lets them change one on each bit, and it lets them change the height of the shelf. I had a few of those, and I had different sizes, and these are the smallest ones that I had up here. So I managed to fit them in, and because they're screwed in place with a screw nut, you don't even need to glue it in place. You can just drill 4 holes and then just screw them in place, and that's exactly what I did. And yeah, I have to be honest, guys, I'm quite happy with the outcome. I used this box here. I made this out of styrene as well that I had left over, and it's not great. Even I know it's not great. You know, I haven't even painted that bit at the bottom. I didn't need to. It's never going to be shown. But what I decided to do was I made just that box just to put all the wires in, because I know he has a box in the thing. It normally has Stark Industries written on the side. I haven't done any of that to it yet. But I've also got one of those really cool 1/6 scale toolboxes that you can get on eBay, and it's got little tools in there and stuff like that. And I'm going to put that on that side and then scatter some toolboxes around the edge. Now this piece was another expense. This piece was when I went to B&Q to get that pole, I saw this. It was like some sort of thin mesh, metal mesh. And it was only about 1/2 meter big or 1/2 meter wide or whatever it was. And I think they use it for like radiators and things like that. But it looked pretty cool, and I was like, oh, that could work for the base of the bottom of the thing. So I bought some and I cut it out to the shape I wanted. Unfortunately, you can see that the glue is sort of lifted from this part here, so I have to go back and push that back down and get that glued in place, but it's not too big a deal. I don't even think a lot of people noticed until I just pointed it out, but just the way it is. And then I'm going to I put another piece of it up here on the top here, just to give some texture up the top, so it makes it look like there's something going on up there other than it's just me. And then I repainted both the bases black, then I used gunmetal dry brushing, and then I used chrome dry brushing, and I used some just little bits of wear and tear around it to make it look like it's a big metal base that he's supported on. And that's it, guys. Finally, I've got something out of it, you know. I didn't just have this piece of crap that I threw in the bin, although most of this shit can be thrown now. Not a lot of it is salvageable. I'm definitely keeping this bit just in case I need replacements for my pink panties problem with my Mark IV, or, you know, just other little bits. Maybe they could work in this little bit over here. Maybe they could work as little bits of tech and stuff that he's working on inside the workshop there. But yeah, that's it. It took a while, guys. I'll be honest with you. I probably bored the life out of you telling you about this, but there was a lot that went into it, and it wasn't just something I made out, you know, off the cuff. It was something that took me a little while. But I built it up over time, and I added little bits together. And while Hot Toys aren't announcing much, I know they've just announced Qui-Gon Jinn. Other than that, they've been a little quiet lately, so I'm waiting for Sideshow to ship, God knows how many figures, and nothing's been coming out. I've just been waiting for Thanos. Thanos still ain't here. What else isn't here? Wolf Predator. Wolf Predator still has not arrived. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for that. And they've delayed it for another month. So, anyway, less bitching about Sideshow. More finishing off this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I hope you like what I've done with this HC Toys piece of rubbish. It was a little bit of a labour of love. Put a little work into it. Took my time with it. I didn't rush anything. I could have probably done better with this forearm piece over time, but, you know, it takes so long that you just have to get some things done, and I did that. And I can always go back and redo it if I so wish. But that's what you can do with one of these HC Toy figures. Definitely don't use it as a replacement for a Hot Toy. You'd be mad to. The paint jobs are terrible. Look at that head sculpt. Yeah, it's terrible. It doesn't work. He looks like a crack addict. Sorry, dude. You're not getting your fix today. It's definitely jonesing. Yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. And if you do me a favour now, if you get the flip out of my cave, I've got a lot of waiting for figures to come.